I've always been a reasonable neighbor, keep my lawn trimmed, house painted in the approved colors, and trash bins hidden from street view. You know, all those little rules you agree to when you buy into a planned community with a homeowners association. For 5 peaceful years, I never had an issue with our HOA. That all changed when Karen Wilkerson was elected as the new HOA president. Karen had moved into our community about a year ago, and within months, she'd managed to get herself onto the board. Within another 6 months, she'd somehow maneuvered her way into the presidency after the previous president relocated for work. From day one of her reign, everyone felt the change. Violation notices tripled, fines increased, community meetings became her personal stage for power trips. It's about maintaining property values, she would say with a smug smile whenever anyone questioned her aggressive enforcement tactics. But we all knew it was about control. I'm an architect by profession, working mostly from home since the pandemic. My house sits at the corner of our subdivision with a wraparound driveway that connects to both the main road and a small side street. This unique feature was actually what sold me on the house. Convenient access from 2 directions, plus the side entrance led directly to my home office, making it perfect for client visits. The trouble began last spring when I decided to build a small water feature in my backyard. Nothing extravagant, just a modest pond with a small waterfall. I submitted all the proper paperwork to the HOA, included detailed plans as required, and waited for approval. According to HOA bylaws, if you don't hear back within 30 days, the request is automatically approved. 31 days passed with no response, so I began construction. I hired professionals, obtained the necessary permits from the city, and the work was completed within a week. It looked beautiful, enhancing not just my property but the overall aesthetic of the neighborhood. My next-door neighbors even commented on how lovely it was. Then came a knock at my door. There stood Karen in her pristine white capri pants and pastel blouse, designer sunglasses perched on her head, and a manila folder clutched to her chest like it contained state secrets. "Hello, James," she said with a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I need to discuss your unauthorized landscaping project." I invited her in, offered her water or coffee, which she declined with a dismissive wave of her hand. I explained that my request had been automatically approved per the bylaws since I hadn't received a response within 30 days. "Actually," she said, pulling out a piece of paper from her folder, "your request was denied on day 29. You must have missed the email." I asked to see the denial, and she showed me a printout of an email dated exactly 29 days after my submission. Convenient timing. I requested to see the outgoing email from the HOA account, but she claimed that wasn't necessary. "The decision is final," she said with that same tight smile. "You'll need to remove the water feature by the end of the month, or you'll be fined $100 per day." I remained calm. "I never received this email, Karen, and I've checked all my folders, including spam. Nothing from the HOA about my request." "Perhaps you should check your settings," she suggested with fake concern in her voice. Technology can be so finicky, especially for people who aren't particularly savvy. I bit my tongue. I'd been building websites and managing complex digital architectural rendering programs since before she probably knew what email was. "I'll be happy to check again," I said evenly, "but I'd also like to formally request the HOA email server log showing that this message was actually sent and not just drafted. As I'm sure you know, that's my right according to Section 8 of our bylaws." Her smile faltered for just a moment before she composed herself. "Of course. I'll have our secretary send those over." She stood up abruptly. "But the decision stands. 30 days to remove it." After she left, I went through my emails again. Nothing. I also checked the community online portal where all HOA communications were supposed to be archived, no record of a denial there either. I had a strong suspicion Karen had backdated that denial, but I needed proof. The next day, instead of the server logs I'd requested, I received a new violation notice. This one claimed my side driveway was not in compliance with community standards. According to the notice, driveways could only connect to the main road, not to side streets. This was absurd, since my house had been built this way and the driveway had existed for years before I even purchased the property. I called a friend who had been on the original development committee for our subdivision. He confirmed what I already knew: corner lots were specifically designed with dual access driveways. It was in the original community plans. When I brought this up at the next HOA meeting, Karen dismissed it with a wave of her hand. The board has reinterpreted that provision, she said with an air of authority. Side street access driveways create traffic hazards and detract from the community aesthetic. Several neighbors spoke up in my defense, pointing out that there were at least 3 other corner homes with similar driveways. Karen's response was chilling. Yes, and they'll all be receiving notices as well. We're giving everyone 90 days to modify their driveways to comply with the updated interpretation. The cost to remove half my driveway and landscape the area would run into thousands. And for what? A reinterpretation that solved no actual problem. I formally appealed the decision, which entitled me to a hearing with the full board. But the hearing was a joke. Karen had clearly worked her influence on the other board members. They voted 4-1 to uphold the violation. The only dissenting vote came from Bill Henderson, a retired lawyer who had been on the board for years. After the meeting, he approached me in the parking lot. "This isn't right," he said, shaking his head. "Karen's turning this place into her personal kingdom, but she's making mistakes. Keep documenting everything." I took his advice to heart. I began recording all interactions with the HOA, saving every email, and taking dated photographs of my property. I also started researching the history of our HOA regulations and the legal boundaries of their authority. Meanwhile, I continued to receive escalating fines for both my water feature and my driveway. I refused to pay, which only seemed to fuel Karen's determination. Then came the nuclear option. I returned home from a rare day working at a client's office to find a construction crew installing fence posts along the edge of my property where my side driveway connected to the street. I immediately confronted the crew foreman, who showed me a work order signed by Karen as HOA president, authorizing the installation of a decorative community fence along the side street. The fence would completely block my side driveway access. I called Karen immediately. "You can't do this. It's not just an HOA issue, you're blocking legal access to my property." "The fence is being installed on the community easement," she responded coolly. "Which is under HOA jurisdiction. Perhaps this will motivate you to address your violations." I contacted a lawyer that same day, who confirmed what I already suspected. While the HOA did have certain rights regarding the community easement, using it to block access to a pre-existing, city-approved driveway was almost certainly illegal. But before we could file for an emergency injunction, the fence was completed. A 6-foot-high wooden barrier, completely blocking my side driveway. I was furious but decided to let things play out because Karen had made a critical error. She hadn't just blocked my access, she had unknowingly blocked the board's private parking lot entrance as well.